What brings you the most joy right now?
Family.
Beautiful. Second, what do you want your girls to think when they hear your name?
Daddy.
Nice. Number 3, your favorite animated film?
Pinocchio.
Oh, nice. Oh, I was not expecting that.
It's the greatest.
Yeah.
They were in a zone when they made that film.
Absolutely. Question number 4, the book that's had the biggest impact on you?
The Alchemist.
Oh, nice. Okay, great. Question number 5, your one message to all storytellers would be?
Create from truth.
Because so much of your content right now that you're creating here at Granity is aimed at helping young people, aimed at helping children. And as a father of 4 girls, I wanted to ask you, what's the biggest thing you've learned about yourself by being a father?
It's amazing. Like when you become a parent, things become much more, life becomes, it lines things up for you a little differently, right? Like before you have kids, me and my wife, we can travel anytime. There's work and, you become you have a very clear focus. When you have children, it becomes about them. It's not about you guys anymore, right? And so that shift, it's a big one. It's one of kind of a selfishness together and then to being absolutely selfless and doing anything you can for your kids. And so what I'm trying to do is create content to teach them first and foremost. That's why I started this whole thing, is just reading stories to them that I felt like didn't exist. In today's world, there's so much clutter. It becomes harder for kids to try to weave through a lot of the crap that's out there to find stuff that's actually beneficial to them.
Yeah, you reminded me, I think E.O. Wilson said, we're drowning in information, starving for wisdom.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Especially, and that's why I think your work is cutting through, because I think what you've managed to do with your new work is that you're finding ways to connect with what people care about, but you're taking it a step deeper.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're not just settling for let's talk about sports. It's not just about sports. It's about life, right?
It's about the metaphor that sports has for life. I mean, sports is the greatest metaphor we have in terms of dealing with life. Because, even if you listen to music will give you guidance, right? That you can then meditate on and think about how you would apply it. In sports, you have to apply it in the here and now. I mean, you're faced with challenges moment to moment. You're faced with pressures and anxiety and communication or the lack thereof and all this other stuff. Like, it's in the moment. So you have to live it. And when you practice those things, you become better at it. But I just feel like in this day and age, our children have become less imaginative about how to problem solve. And parents and coaches have become more directive in trying to mandate or give orders or teach kids how to think and teach kids how to behave and tell them how to behave versus teaching them how to behave. And so that's why I'm creating these stories and creating this content.
And for you, it was really powerful because you've talked about this before, where your father said to you, like, whether you score 0 or 60, like, I love you.
Yeah.
Tell me what that statement meant to you at that time, and how did it actually motivate you to continue scoring 60 rather than go, oh, I'm all right at 0?
Well, it did more than that, right? So like the basketball stuff speaks for itself in terms of what that comment did for me, in terms of giving me stability and giving me confidence to say, okay, it's okay to fail because you're going to be loved no matter what. And that doesn't just mean basketball. That means anything in life. That means writing. That means being an entrepreneur. That means having the confidence to go for it. And I've seen too many parents do the exact opposite. And it terrifies children. And children become paralyzed by their own fear because they don't have that security blanket of love and comfort.
When you talk about missing 5 throws and you talk about getting over yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like getting over yourself. How did you get that mentality of just being like, I need to get over this. Like, I need to get over myself.
Trial and error. You grow up and you make game-winning shots and it's awesome. You come back the next day and miss a game-winning shot and it's misery. And then the next day comes and you're back playing again. And you understand that life has this cyclical nature where it's, what you do on Monday is fantastic, but then Tuesday is a bad day. But guess what? There's Wednesday. Yeah. So are we just supposed to live our lives like this the whole time? Versus just staying like this and understanding that it's really just a journey of evolution. Every day is just constant improvement, constant curiosity, constantly getting better. The results don't really matter. It's the figuring out that matters.
Yeah. And we all get obsessed about the results.
Yeah.
Like we get obsessed about like the output,
Yeah.
not the input, of not figuring it out and not like changing things. What you said, trial and error, like the experimenting.
Yeah.
We forget to do that.
It's unfortunate, man. Like I've seen a lot of players, especially now, you know, in youth basketball dealing with that. You have players that are like bigger and faster and stronger, and, you know, their coaches are just coaching them for results. You know, we're just going to use your size because you're bigger than every other 12-year-old out there to dominate today. But they're not growing, right? So they're just based on that result, but they're not focused on growing this young child into becoming a better athlete. And through that, teaching them how to become a more well-rounded person. And we're missing that. When I came back to the States, I wasn't the most athletic kid. You know, I was really scrawny, like really, really skinny, and had like major knee issues because I was growing. So I was the dorky kid with high socks and big old knee pads.
It's fashionable now.
It's fashionable now. It wasn't then. It wasn't then. And so I had to look long term, because in the here and now, I couldn't compete with these kids. I mean, there was kids that were like 12 years old with beards. Like, I can't, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, they're doing windmills and dunking backwards, and I'm happy to like tap the backboard, you know? So I had to look at it from a long term, because I wasn't going to give up on the game.
Right.
So I had to say, okay, this year I'm going to get better at that. Next year, this, and then so forth and so on. And then patiently I was able to catch them.
Yeah. I love hearing that, because I think so many of us kind of, you believe like when you see people like yourself, it's like, it's so easy as an excuse to ourselves to just be, oh, you're destined for it, right? You were made for it. It's kind of like that kind of, you know, like, oh yeah, it's, you know, but when you talk about saying, oh, actually, when I started, I didn't have the physicality that meant that I was going to make it. Like, you had to figure it out. And I love it.
Figure it out, man. It's just piece by piece, and it's the consistency of the work, which I feel like a lot of parents are missing today, because we're not teaching that to our kids. We tend to say like kids don't want to do the work, but in reality, it's when we're failing them, because we're not leading them the right way and teaching them, you know, how to fish, you know what I mean? And so like the consistency of work, Monday, get better. Tuesday, get better. Wednesday, get better, right? And you do that over a period of time, you know, not like 1 month or 2 months. I mean, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And then you can get to where you want to go. Yeah.
I think it was Bill Gates who was talking about that. He talks about how like we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 10 years.
No doubt.
Right? Like, it's like that, you know?
No doubt.
Like, I think everyone thinks about it, like, what can I do right now? Like, how can I make it happen? But like, with you, I think people always ask you also, like, you know, how do you deal with losing or failure? What I'm intrigued by is how someone like you deals with winning. Because you've won again and again. And like I was saying earlier, you won, obviously we know you won in basketball big as an athlete, but you're winning now, even in the work you're doing here as a storyteller, as a producer, right? Yeah. It's amazing to see so many incredible awards coming through. How have you dealt with winning? Like, when you win, what goes through your mind to help you to continue with?
Well, it's a little different. Like in basketball, it was different because I expected to win. You know, like I expected us to win championships. I expected us to win 5. Quite honestly, I expected us to win 8. And so when you have that vision in sports, it's a direct competition. Like, I know how hard they're working. I know how hard we're working. I know what their strategy is. I know what ours is, you know? So it's a little different. So when we win in the NBA, it was like, yeah, we expected to do that. But now we're going to come back and we're going to do it again, you know? And so it's that constant, like, all right, you're churning. You win one championship, I'm back in the gym the next day, working, getting ready for the next one. Now, it's different because it's not about the awards. You know, you just wind up trying to create something that's going to inspire someone that hopefully, you know, through that inspiration, they can inspire somebody else. And what I've come to learn as my career went on is that's more significant than any championship. Is how do you connect with somebody that can then connect with another? And then whether the awards come or not, you know, that's for, you know, the Academy Award body to decide. But, you know, like for us, it's just to try to create things. You know, we're looking at 62% of young children are dropping out of sports, 62%. And they cite the fact that it's not fun anymore. But what does that tell them? I mean, that's telling us as grown-ups are getting in the way. Get out the way. Let these kids be imaginative, which, you know, like in our stories, it's important that, yeah, there's a fantasy nature to it, right? But it's rooted in reality, right? When we have fire-breathing winged horses and things of that nature, those are actual drills that are taking place. We don't have fire breathing winged horses actually performing that, but we do have ball machines that are spitting balls at tennis players, right? And so all of our stories are all anchored in an element of truth, so that children feel like when they are doing these drills with these ball machines, they can envision maybe it's a fire-breathing winged horse.
Yeah, to keep them excited.
Yeah, they can envision Gus throwing fireballs at them.
Yeah.
And even the plays, like when in the Wizenard series, when the basket is opening up and shrinking, these are things that we experience as athletes. Like some days I feel like I can't make a shot, man, and the basket feels like the size of a keyhole.
Yeah.
And other days it looks like a swimming pool.
Yeah.
That's magic. And so we root our magic in reality so that when kids experience these things, particularly the failure side of it, they can connect it to one of our stories and say, okay, I've seen this before. I know how to deal with this.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. I love that. That analogy of like feeling the basket bigger or smaller and like being able to vision that. I can vision it right now. And like, yeah, you're so right. Like some days it looks huge. And I love that. That's such a great way of thinking about it. And I guess so much of this is from your real life vision.
Oh, yeah.
This is like some days.
I've experienced it.
Yeah. But I love that because it's also giving them the permission to say like, be imaginative about this, right?
Yes.
And that obviously gives so much. I think when we imagine, it changes the reality of, I'm just sitting out here taking shots.
Yes.
Right? Which can get boring and tiring.
It becomes mechanical.
Mechanical, that's the right word.
Mechanical. Yeah. Like our job is to try to inspire the creativity inside of our children so that they can think through how to problem solve situations. So like, when I coach my daughter's team, it's not about giving them answers. It's about asking them questions and getting them to process things. Right? When the game is being played, I'm not sitting there giving them answers or barking out things on the sideline. I sit down and I'm quiet. My assistant coach sits there and she's quiet. And the kids figure things out for themselves, or they don't. And then they come back and there's always questions. And then you kind of ask them more questions and you help them figure it out. But then you see their level of excitement to practice every day increase because it's a process that they are owning, right? They're not coming to get orders barked at them every day. They're coming for kind of their personal quest to get better.
Yeah.
The first novel we did was the Wizenard series. It was important for that to be basketball because I wanted the first story to be one of empathy and compassion. And in team sports, if you don't have that, you can't win, right? And so it was important to tell the tale of a basketball team dealing with their own personal fears and have those fears and insecurities lead to empathy and compassion for others. Right. And with the second story, I wanted to look more internal, individually, and look at how do you deal with the inner challenges, the kind of the self-negotiation that takes place inside of our own heads. And there was no sport better than that than tennis. There's golf, but tennis, you have more movement, which to me symbolizes life in general because there's a lot going on. Right? There's the elements in tennis that you have to deal with as you deal with in golf, maybe not to the same extent, but they're still there. And then there's the confrontation with the person across the net from you.
Yes.
Right? As well as the strengths and weaknesses in your own movements and how you feel in your own body. And because of that, it was important for this story to be a tennis story. You're out running on a track, working out, and you start talking to yourself saying, man, my knee is really sore right now. Maybe I'm doing too much.
Sounds like me.
Maybe I need to back off, Man, my lungs are burning. Maybe I can just slow down here. I'll do like an extra 2 sets tomorrow. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
Right? That sort of stuff.
Yes.
Like that stuff's dangerous.
Yes.
And that's when you just got to say, you know what? I'm not negotiating with myself.
Yeah.
The deal was already made. The deal was made when I set out at the beginning of the summer and said, this is the training plan I'm doing. I signed that contract with myself. I'm doing it. Throughout that process, you'll start talking to yourself like, man, I think I need to, nope. No, this is non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And for you, empathy and compassion were things that you'd been through. Like that was personally inspired work.
Yeah.
When did it come to your awareness that empathy was something missing for you and that you wanted to develop it?
I had a teammate that spoke to me and said, hey, Cole, I just want to feel like as a teammate, you need me. I was like, well, duh. I can't, like that was my immediate reaction. I was like, dude, yeah, of course. But I had to kind of think about really what he was saying and where that was coming from for him and his story and his journey and what that meant to him. And that opened my eyes to there's a bigger game being played. It's not just basketball, but it's the emotions of each individual and the backstory that they're carrying with them, the baggage that they're carrying with them. And if I really want to be a champion and be a great teammate, I have to understand what those mean to help them become better and in turn, help me.
It just shows the role of teachers. And now when you find that teachers are using the work you're creating to teach, that must be amazing.
Comes full circle.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's a pretty cool feeling, man. Like growing up, when I was in high school, man, I didn't read much at all.
Yeah.
You know, because basketball was my thing. Now, if you give me a basketball book or like a sports book or like a sports psych book, I'm devouring that. You know what I mean? Because it was a clear focus for me, which kind of gets me into this market a little bit too. Because like for our active children that love being outdoors and playing all the time, they're not reading.
No.
But they're missing out on so much by not reading. But they will read if there's something that they feel like speaks to them.
When I was growing up, I never enjoyed fiction. And so I thought I didn't like reading because all the books that the school suggested were fiction books.
Right.
And then when I was 14, my dad handed me an autobiography and a biography. And I devoured it. And then I started reading because I was like, I want to hear about real people who break and who develop and who learn and grow and like have been through failure. And like, I want to hear about rags to riches. And I want to hear about real people who went through real pain.
That's right.
But I grew up believing that I didn't like reading.
Right.
And I think you're so right. I think there's a lot of kids out there who think they don't like reading or they think reading is boring.
It's a problem because like what I found in the industry, which is why we self-publish, because a lot of publishers want to publish the same type of story, you know, the same type of plots, same looking characters, not a lot of diverse characters out there at all. And so we said, you know what, we're gonna have to do this on our own. This way we don't have anybody in our way telling us what the market wants to hear. I don't care about that. We write stories that come from the heart, and our characters are gonna look like my daughters, because my daughters don't have characters out there that look like them.
It's a great point.
So they're gonna look like my kids, and we're gonna go from there.
Yeah, I think what you just raised there about diversity and representation is huge.
Oh, it's huge, man.
Huge.
Because I don't see it, man. And like, you know, books is just the first thing. Publishing is the first thing. Now, if we look at animation is even worse. It's even worse, you know, in terms of developing characters, diverse characters. But even beyond that, the animators themselves, there's no diversity in that industry.
Right.
None. And I'm talking not just racial diversity, but gender diversity as well.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of things that we need to take on, that we are taking on, and hope to make the world and the industry a better place because of it.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. I'm a British Indian, right? Born and raised in London, Indian, never seen any character that look like me anywhere.
Right, because they think, you know, the mass market, it's not going to appeal to the mass market, so we're not going to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, what? What?
Yeah, and everything's spreading so fast now, and everything's global now.
Yeah.
Right? Nearly all content is global now, and most global markets are growing everywhere. So the need for people, especially young people, being able to see themselves in characters. And it's not, and I think it's a deeper point that you're making, is you want to be able to see your story in someone. Right? Even just beyond like color and background. It's like your story, your experience of life.
When we made Dear Basketball, we got a lot of pushback from people. Like I took it to some very prominent studios at first, and they all said, yeah, no. Because you said basketball is too sports specific. Nobody's going to connect with this sort of thing. Because, you know, there's a lot of people out there who don't watch basketball. And I'm like, well, that's not the point. It's not the point. And so it was really a case study. Even with our novels, everybody was like, sports novels, nobody's going to read that. It's too much of a niche market. I'm like, sports is bigger than that, man. And so we made Dear Basketball to really prove a point that you don't have to watch basketball at all to connect to the journey of a dream.
Yes.
You know? And once we saw that connection, it was kind of validated our point of view.
I think that's a massive point of view. And for anyone who's listening or watching right now who thinks because Kobe Bryant wants to do something, it just happens, it just shows you have to do it yourself sometimes because not everyone's going to believe in you.
Certainly not. Certainly not. The important thing is research. You know, in the hall here in the office, I have a hall that I call Muse Hall. We have all the portraits of some of our muses here, from J.K. Rowling to Steve Jobs and so forth and so on. And I think it's important to research them. And it's like putting, fuel in the fire every day. There's constant inspiration. When you read about them, what they were able to accomplish, how they went about accomplishing it. You're just constantly, feeding that flame and learning. And the best way to do that is to learn from the people who have done it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That just made me so happy. I have a gallery wall in my home. If we were recording this at my place in Hollywood,
awesome.
Like I have a gallery wall, Steve Jobs is right there.
Yeah.
Right. And Einstein's there, and Martin Luther King's there, and there's a few other people. And for me, it's the same thing. It's like sometimes I'm sitting there and I'll be like, well, what would that person do? Like, how would they have dealt with this challenge?
Right.
And you're so right. I think you can be mentored by people who aren't alive.
100%. Because their stories still live, brings us to the importance of storytelling.
Yeah.
Their stories still live. These muses are here. It's important to learn from them. And if anything, it helps you remember that they are human, just like us.
Yeah.
These great things that get accomplished can be accomplished by others and beyond. Building Walt Disney Company is not something that, people look at and scoff at and go, oh, it can't be done anymore. Well, why not? Why not?
Yeah. And the more action you take, the more you think is possible.
Yeah, because you realize there are people just like us. They made mistakes just like us, and they kept going. And we can do the same.